When we look around, we think we see the world in its fullness. Trees, clouds, the sea, and the familiar surfaces of our homes. But what we see is only a thin film, a narrow band of reality. Beneath it, upon it, and within it, exists an invisible world, teeming with life so small that even the sharpest human eyes cannot perceive it. This is the world of microbes. Microbes are everywhere, on the surface of your skin, in the air you breathe, in the soil beneath your feet, and coursing through your body in their countless billions. For every human cell inside you, there are at least as many microbial companions, perhaps more. If we could suddenly shrink ourselves down to their scale, we'd discover landscapes of staggering complexity. Caverns of pores, vast plains of membranes, rivers of chemical reactions. The you that you think of as a single body is, in truth, a living ecosystem, a partnership of human cells and microbial life, constantly negotiating and balancing. And yet, despite their abundance, microbes went unnoticed for most of human history. People saw their effects, the way milk curdled into cheese, the way wounds festered with infection, the way wine bubbled and fermented. But the agents behind these transformations remained hidden, wrapped in mystery, attributed to spirits or spontaneous processes. It would take the curiosity of a lens maker in the 17th century to first unveil this hidden world. Antonie van Leeuwenhoek was not a formally trained scientist. He was a Dutch tradesman, a draper by profession, who developed an obsession with grinding lenses to ever greater clarity. In the 1670s, peering through his handmade microscopes, he began to see something no one else had: tiny, motile creatures darting and swimming in droplets of pond water in the plaque scraped from his own teeth. He called them animalcules, little animals. His descriptions to the Royal Society of London were so vivid and precise that they could not be dismissed as fantasy. With van Leeuwenhoek's curiosity and patience, the microbial world was revealed, like a curtain being lifted for the first time. This discovery changed everything, though at first the significance wasn't understood. The existence of these tiny beings suggested that nature was far more intricate than human senses alone could show. Still, for more than a century, microbes remained curiosities under the microscope, oddities to sketch and describe. The connection between these invisible creatures and the diseases that plagued humankind had not yet been made. That connection began to emerge in the 19th century. Louis Pasteur, a French chemist and biologist, conducted careful experiments that showed fermentation and putrefaction were not spontaneous. They were caused by the activity of microbes. Pasteur's swan-necked flask experiments, where broth remained sterile if airborne particles were kept out but spoiled if they were allowed in, provided dramatic evidence. His work helped overturn the ancient belief in spontaneous generation, the idea that life could arise from non-living matter without cause. Instead, life begets life, even at the smallest scales. From Pasteur came the germ theory of disease, the radical idea that illnesses like anthrax or rabies could be traced to specific microbes. His rival and contemporary, Robert Koch in Germany, advanced the theory by developing methods to isolate and culture individual microbes. Koch's postulates, a set of criteria for linking a microorganism to a disease, became the foundation of modern microbiology. Under his microscope, the bacterial culprits of tuberculosis and cholera came into sharp view, no longer abstractions but tangible agents of suffering. It's easy to forget how revolutionary this was. Imagine a world where epidemics swept through cities with no clear explanation. Cholera, for example, could kill within hours, draining life with terrifying speed. Many believed it spread through miasmas, bad air, or divine punishment. To discover that the cause was an invisible bacterium, Vibrio cholerae, transmitted through contaminated water, was both shocking and empowering. For the first time, diseases could be understood, traced, and prevented. The late 19th and early 20th centuries became a golden age of microbial discovery. Scientists identified pathogens responsible for diphtheria, plague, and syphilis. Vaccines were developed. Antiseptic practices spread in hospitals. What had once been mysterious curses began to yield to scientific understanding. Humanity was, in a sense, learning to see for the first time. But microbes were never only agents of disease. Even as they were recognized as enemies to human health, scientists also began to notice their essential roles in life itself. Pasteur himself studied fermentation in yeast, showing how these microscopic fungi transformed sugars into alcohol. Cheese, wine, and bread, staples of human culture, were revealed to be products of microbial labor. Soil fertility, too, was tied to unseen organisms recycling nutrients. The invisible world was not only dangerous, it was indispensable. As microscopes improved, and as staining techniques made the invisible visible in color, the diversity of microbes became astonishing. Rods, spheres, spirals, chains, clusters, 1,000 forms. Some were harmless, some symbiotic, some deadly. Together they made up a hidden kingdom of life, more ancient than plants or animals, stretching back billions of years. In fact, microbes were here first. Long before the first trees, before even the first fish swam in the sea, microbial life dominated Earth. The earliest evidence of life, dating back at least 3.5 billion years, comes from fossilized microbial mats called stromatolites. For 2 billion years, microbes were the planet's only inhabitants, slowly transforming the atmosphere. Cyanobacteria, sometimes called blue-green algae, learned to harness sunlight through photosynthesis, releasing oxygen as a byproduct. This great oxygenation event, about 2.4 billion years ago, poisoned many earlier forms of life, but paved the way for complex, oxygen-breathing organisms, including us. So in a very real sense, microbes are not just neighbors, they are our ancestors. Every breath of oxygen you take is a gift from ancient microbial activity. Every meal you digest relies on microbial enzymes. The very evolution of multicellular life is inseparable from them. And yet, here we are, vast, conscious creatures, barely noticing the microbial multitude that made us possible. Even today, though we study them with powerful microscopes and sequence their genomes by the thousands, microbes remain mysterious. Only a fraction of microbial species have been identified. The majority live in what scientists call the microbial dark matter, unknown and unseen, waiting to be understood. Reflect for a moment on the paradox. Microbes are unimaginably numerous. Estimates suggest there are a nonillion of them on Earth. That's one followed by 9 zeros by 30 zeros. And yet we live most of our lives blind to them. They are both everywhere and invisible, both ancient and ever new, both dangerous and necessary. To glimpse this world is to recognize that life is not built from grand, visible structures alone. It is woven from the smallest of threads, from cells so tiny they can slip through all but the finest filters. And yet collectively they hold the planet in balance. Without microbes, the Earth would be a sterile rock, barren of oxygen, devoid of soil, stripped of its cycles of life and renewal. When Antonie van Leeuwenhoek peered through his simple lens and saw those animalcules dancing in water, he was not just looking at a curiosity. He was peering into life's hidden foundation, into the fabric that sustains us all. The invisible world he revealed continues to astonish us centuries later as we discover not only what microbes do, but how deeply we are entangled with them. If the Earth itself is a microbial planet, then so are we. Every human being is not just a single organism, but a walking community, a superorganism made up of both human and microbial cells. For every step you take, trillions of microscopic passengers move with you. This collection of microbial life within us is known as the human microbiome. It includes bacteria, archaea, fungi, and even viruses that live on our skin, in our mouths, throughout our digestive tract, and in nearly every corner of the body. They do not exist as invaders, though they can sometimes turn harmful, but mostly as partners. They help us survive, and in return, we provide them with a stable home. The numbers themselves are astonishing. In your intestines alone, there may be as many as 100 trillion microbes. If you could gather them up, they would weigh about 1 to 2 kilograms, roughly the weight of your brain. Together, their genes, the microbial genome, vastly outnumber your human genes. By some estimates, the microbiome contains more than 100 times the genetic information coded in your DNA. In other words, you are carrying an enormous library of microbial instructions inside you, one that profoundly shapes your health and well-being. The gut, in particular, is a microbial metropolis. If you could shrink yourself down and wander through it, you would see endless colonies nestled along the folds of the intestines. Some microbes specialize in breaking down complex plant fibers, cellulose, for instance, which our own enzymes cannot digest. Others produce vitamins, like vitamin K and certain B vitamins, directly within our bodies. Still others help train and regulate the immune system, teaching it to distinguish between friend and foe. This intimate partnership has been developing for millions of years. Our ancestors, who harbored useful microbes, had an advantage. They could extract more nutrition from food, resist more infections, and recover faster from illness. Over generations, humans and microbes co-evolved, each shaping the destiny of the other. In recent decades, scientists have begun to realize just how deep this relationship runs. Studies from the early 2000s launched what became known as the Human Microbiome Project, a massive international effort to sequence and catalog the microbes living in and on the human body. The findings were humbling. There is no single human microbiome, no universal set of microbes. Instead, each person carries a unique microbial signature, like a fingerprint, shaped by diet, environment, age, and even the way you were born. Babies delivered vaginally receive their first microbes from their mother's birth canal, while those delivered by caesarean section acquire a different initial set from the hospital environment. As we grow, our diet plays a powerful role in sculpting the microbiome. High-fiber diets support a diverse microbial community, while heavily processed foods may reduce it. Geography matters too. People in rural Africa, for instance, often have far more microbial diversity than people in industrialized nations. This diversity, researchers believe, may be linked to lower rates of autoimmune and inflammatory diseases. The relationship between microbes and the immune system is especially striking. Germ-free mice, raised in completely sterile environments, show underdeveloped immune systems and are more prone to certain illnesses. Only when microbes are introduced does their immune system mature properly. In humans too, exposure to microbes early in life seems to help calibrate immunity, lowering the risk of allergies and asthma. It's as though microbes act as instructors, guiding the immune system through lessons in tolerance and defense. Perhaps most surprising is the growing evidence that microbes affect not just our bodies, but our minds. This connection, known as the gut-brain axis, reveals a constant conversation between the digestive tract and the central nervous system. Microbes produce neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine, as well as short-chain fatty acids that influence brain function. Animal studies have shown that altering the gut microbiome can change behavior, anxiety levels, and even social interaction. In humans, research is uncovering links between gut microbes and conditions like depression, autism, and Parkinson's disease. While the science is still young, it suggests that mental health may, in part, be rooted in microbial balance. There is a poetic irony here. The creatures too small to see may help shape the thoughts that define us. The invisible passengers in our intestines may influence how we feel, what we crave, even how we see the world. Beyond the gut, microbes populate every surface of the body. The skin microbiome acts as a shield against pathogens, producing antimicrobial compounds and outcompeting harmful invaders. In the mouth, microbes form communities that help maintain balance, though when disrupted, they can lead to cavities and gum disease. Even the lungs, once thought sterile, host microbial residents. The relationship is delicate. When balance is maintained, the microbiome protects and nourishes us. But when it is disrupted, through antibiotics, poor diet, or illness, problems arise. Antibiotics, for instance, though life-saving, can wipe out not just harmful bacteria, but beneficial ones, leading to imbalances and infections by opportunistic microbes, like Clostridioides difficile. This is why scientists are exploring ways to restore microbial communities after disruption, sometimes through probiotics or even fecal microbiota transplants, in which healthy microbes are transferred from one person to another. One of the most fascinating aspects of the microbiome is how dynamic it is. It shifts over the course of a single day, changing with meals, sleep, and activity. It evolves as we age, with infancy marked by rapid microbial colonization, adulthood by relative stability, and old age by gradual decline in diversity. It responds to stress, exercise, and travel. You could think of it as a mirror of your lifestyle, reflecting the choices you make and the environments you inhabit. And it is not only a passenger, but a participant. Microbes can influence appetite by signaling hunger or satiety. They can modify how we metabolize medications, making drugs more or less effective. They can even leave traces in our scent, shaping subtle aspects of human interaction. All of this forces us to reconsider what it means to be human. If your body is home to trillions of microbes, if their genes and functions intertwine with your own, where do you end and they begin? Some scientists argue that individuality is not just a human trait, but a property of the entire microbial human system. We are not solitary beings, but symbiotic collectives. This realization also carries a sense of humility. The microbes inside us are not subordinate. They are not under our control. They follow their own evolutionary paths, their own strategies for survival. We benefit when those strategies align with ours, but we are always negotiating, always balancing. In a sense, we are hosts to guests that are older, more numerous, and more adaptable than we will ever be. As research deepens, the promise of microbiome science grows. Personalized medicine may one day tailor treatments to an individual's microbial profile. Microbial therapies may restore balance to those suffering from chronic conditions. And new discoveries may continue to reveal how profoundly our inner ecosystem shapes our health. For now, though, it is enough to sit with the knowledge that every breath you take, every bite of food, every thought or feeling is, in some way, connected to the invisible world within you. The microbes are not just passengers, they are part of the self, the unseen majority, woven into the very fabric of being alive. When we step outside and breathe in the scent of rain on soil, or stand by the ocean watching waves roll in, it's easy to think of these environments as vast, impersonal forces. Earth, in its grandeur, feels stable, solid, self-contained. But peel back the layers, and you discover that microbes are the hidden engineers of almost every process that keeps the planet alive. Take the soil beneath your feet. A handful of healthy soil can contain more microbes than there are people on Earth. Bacteria, fungi, archaea, and protozoa weave together into a microscopic society. Some break down fallen leaves into their elemental components, recycling carbon, nitrogen, and phosphorus back into forms plants can use. Without this hidden recycling system, nutrients would lock away in dead matter, and ecosystems would quickly grind to a halt. Fungi, in particular, form extraordinary partnerships with plants through structures known as mycorrhizal networks. The filaments of fungi, called hyphae, extend through the soil, connecting plant roots together like living threads. Through these underground networks, plants and fungi exchange resources, sugars flowing from plants to fungi, minerals and water moving back the other way. Some scientists call this the Wood Wide Web, a communication and support system beneath forests, and it is powered quietly and invisibly by microbial life. Even the smell of soil has microbial origins. That earthy scent after rain, called petrichor, is largely due to a compound named geosmin, produced by Streptomyces bacteria. To us, the smell feels nostalgic, refreshing, grounding. To microbes, it is a signal of spore release, a way of spreading themselves after rain. What we experience as beauty is, in part, microbial strategy. If soil is a microbial metropolis, the oceans are a microbial universe. Oceans cover more than 70% of Earth's surface, and they teem with life at scales beyond imagination. The majority of this life is microbial: planktonic bacteria, archaea, protists, and viruses drifting in the water column. These tiny beings may be small, but collectively they control the chemistry of the seas and the atmosphere above them. Consider Prochlorococcus, a marine cyanobacterium so small that millions can fit into a single drop of seawater. Discovered only in the 1980s, it is now recognized as one of the most abundant organisms on the planet. It performs photosynthesis, capturing sunlight and producing oxygen. In fact, it is estimated that Prochlorococcus alone contributes about 20% of the oxygen in Earth's atmosphere. 1 in every 5 breaths you take may come from this microbe. Then there are the vast blooms of phytoplankton, microscopic plants and algae that flourish in the oceans. When conditions are right, sunlight, nutrients, temperature, they multiply into trillions, covering regions of the sea visible even from space. These blooms not only form the base of marine food webs, but also absorb huge amounts of carbon dioxide from the air, helping regulate the global climate. Without them, Earth would be hotter, the atmosphere heavier with greenhouse gases, and life as we know it far more precarious. Viruses, too, play a role in the oceans. Though often thought of as agents of disease, in the marine world they act as regulators. By infecting and bursting open microbial cells, they release nutrients back into the environment, fueling new growth. This endless cycle of infection and renewal, repeated at unimaginable scales, helps maintain balance in the sea. Microbes also shape the atmosphere itself. Certain bacteria produce proteins that act as nuclei for ice crystals, allowing clouds to form and raindrops to fall. Without these microbial particles, weather patterns could look very different. In ways subtle and profound, microbes help determine whether skies are clear or stormy. Perhaps the most dramatic environments for microbes, however, are the extremes, places once thought incompatible with life. In boiling hot springs, deep-sea hydrothermal vents, acidic lakes, and polar ice, scientists have found microbes known as extremophiles. In Yellowstone National Park, the vivid colors of hot spring pools come from microbial mats, communities of thermophiles that thrive at temperatures near boiling. Some of these microbes use unusual chemical pathways, such as sulfur metabolism, to survive where other life would be destroyed. On the ocean floor, hydrothermal vents spew superheated water rich in minerals. There, in the darkness, chemotrophic microbes harness chemical energy from hydrogen sulfide to build organic molecules. These microbes form the foundation of entire ecosystems, supporting giant tube worms, clams, and crabs in a world without sunlight. It's a reminder that life does not need the sun, only energy in whatever form it comes. In Antarctica, microbes persist inside frozen lakes sealed beneath kilometers of ice, surviving on the faintest trickle of chemical reactions. In the Atacama Desert of Chile, among the driest places on Earth, microbial communities cling to the insides of rocks, shielded from the relentless sun. Each discovery expands our understanding of life's boundaries. For decades, scientists thought life required narrow conditions, moderate temperatures, liquid water, and oxygen. Extremophiles reveal that life is far more flexible, capable of surviving in boiling acid, crushing pressures, or near total darkness. This resilience reshapes how we think about the universe. If microbes can thrive at the edges of Earth's extremes, why not on Mars, beneath the icy crust of Europa, or in the methane seas of Titan? The search for extraterrestrial life often begins with the lessons taught by extremophiles. What unites these environmental microbes in soil, sea, air, or extreme habitats is their role as unseen regulators of planetary systems. They cycle carbon, nitrogen, and sulfur. They produce and consume gases that shape the climate. They sustain food chains that feed everything from fish to forests. In a sense, microbes are Earth's quiet engineers, building and maintaining the conditions that allow larger life to flourish. And yet, like all engineers, their balance can be disrupted. Human activity, from deforestation to industrial farming, can alter soil microbial communities. Pollution and warming oceans can shift plankton populations with cascading effects on climate and fisheries. Antibiotic overuse, fertilizers, and pesticides ripple through microbial worlds, often with unforeseen consequences. Because microbes are so small, their voices are easy to overlook, but their influence is anything but small. Reflect for a moment on the scale. A single gram of soil can contain 1 billion bacteria. A liter of seawater can hold 10 billion viral particles. Across the planet, the total biomass of microbes outweighs all animals combined. They are quite literally the living fabric of Earth, and yet we rarely notice them. They ask for no recognition. They exist in cycles older than humanity itself, patiently recycling, transforming, sustaining. To walk through a forest or stand by the shore is to stand in the presence of microbial work, an invisible choreography, billions of years in the making. It humbles us to realize that the visible world, the trees, the whales, the humans, is only the surface. Beneath it lies the true foundation, an ocean of microscopic life, unseen but indispensable. Without microbes, Earth would be a dead planet. With them, it is alive, dynamic, and resilient. From the moment humans began to gather in groups, microbes have been our silent companions, sometimes as allies, sometimes as adversaries. They have shaped the rise and fall of civilizations, determined the outcome of wars, and given us bread, beer, and life-saving medicines. To tell the story of humanity is, in many ways, to tell the story of our relationship with microbes. One of the oldest and most enduring partnerships is through fermentation. Long before anyone knew of bacteria or yeast, humans learned that certain foods transformed in mysterious ways when left to sit. Grapes became wine, grain became beer, milk turned into cheese and yogurt. These changes were seen as natural magic, or perhaps divine gifts. In ancient Sumeria, around 4000 BCE, beer was so central to daily life that hymns were written in praise of Ninkasi, the goddess of brewing. In Egypt, bread and beer were staple foods, their production depicted on tomb walls as offerings to sustain the dead in the afterlife. Only much later did science reveal the truth. These transformations are microbial. Yeast, a microscopic fungus, consumes sugars and produces alcohol and carbon dioxide. Bacteria sour milk into yogurt, preserve vegetables into pickles, and help create the complex flavors of cheese. Fermentation, once a mystery, is now understood as microbial labor. Without microbes, much of the world's cuisine would not exist. But microbes have not only filled our tables, they have also challenged us with devastating force. Epidemics throughout history were caused by invisible agents long before anyone could see them. The plague of Athens in 430 BCE, which weakened the city during its war with Sparta, was likely microbial. The Black Death of the 14th century, caused by the bacterium Yersinia pestis, swept across Europe and Asia, killing as many as 50 million people, perhaps one-third of Europe's population at the time. The fear it inspired reshaped societies, economies, and even religion, leaving deep marks on culture and memory. Centuries later, in the 16th century, the arrival of Europeans in the Americas brought not just ships and weapons, but microbes. Diseases like smallpox, measles, and influenza, to which indigenous peoples had little immunity, devastated populations on a massive scale. Some estimates suggest that up to 90% of Native Americans perished in the following centuries. Microbes, carried silently across oceans, became agents of conquest more powerful than armies. For most of history, these outbreaks seemed like fate, curses from the gods, or punishment. It was only with the germ theory of the 19th century that humanity began to recognize microbes as the culprits. And with recognition came new power, the ability to fight back. Few discoveries have altered human destiny as dramatically as antibiotics. In 1928, Alexander Fleming, a Scottish bacteriologist, returned to his laboratory after a holiday and noticed that a mold contaminating one of his petri dishes had killed the surrounding bacteria. The mold was Penicillium notatum, and its chemical weapon, penicillin, became the first true antibiotic. By the 1940s, penicillin was mass-produced, saving soldiers in World War II from infections that once would have been fatal. In the decades that followed, antibiotics revolutionized medicine, turning once deadly diseases into treatable conditions. Yet the microbial world does not yield easily. Bacteria evolve quickly, and many have developed resistance to antibiotics. Today, antibiotic resistance is considered one of the greatest threats to global health. It is a reminder that our relationship with microbes is dynamic, a constant negotiation, a race in which evolution often runs faster than invention. Still, microbes are not only adversaries, they are also tools. The 20th and 21st centuries have seen an explosion of biotechnology harnessing microbes for human purposes. Insulin for diabetes, once extracted from animal pancreases, is now produced by genetically engineered bacteria. Microbes are used to clean oil spills, break down waste, and even generate biofuels. The gene editing technology known as CRISPR-Cas9, which has transformed modern biology, was discovered in bacteria as part of their immune system against viruses. In agriculture, microbes fix nitrogen, making soil fertile and supporting crop growth. In industry, they produce enzymes used in detergents, textiles, and food processing. Even in art, microbes have a role. Certain bacteria create pigments used to color fabrics or inspire biodesign. What was once invisible nuisance has become a toolbox for human creativity. But microbes remain unpredictable. New diseases continue to emerge, often when human activity disrupts ecosystems. The HIV/AIDS pandemic, first recognized in the 1980s, originated from a virus crossing from primates to humans. Ebola, SARS, and influenza all trace their roots to zoonotic transmission, microbes leaping from animals into human populations. Most recently, the COVID-19 pandemic, caused by the coronavirus SARS-CoV-2, demonstrated how quickly a microscopic agent can upend the modern world. In months, it reshaped travel, economies, and daily life across the globe, reminding us that microbes are still powerful forces in human history. Pandemics show the double-edged nature of our relationship with microbes. We are dependent on them for food, medicine, and survival, yet vulnerable to their capacity for disease. The balance is delicate, always shifting. It's worth reflecting, too, on how microbes have shaped culture and thought. In the 19th century, as microscopes revealed bacteria, public health campaigns transformed cities with sanitation systems, clean water supplies, and waste management. Streets were redesigned, hospitals reimagined, entire concepts of cleanliness and hygiene elevated to cultural ideals. The word sterile came to signify not just absence of microbes, but purity itself. And yet, as modern science deepens, we are beginning to return to a more nuanced understanding, recognizing that not all microbes are enemies, and that excessive sterilization can disrupt the balance. From fermented foods that nurture beneficial bacteria to probiotic supplements and microbiome therapies, there is a growing awareness that health is not about destroying microbes, but cultivating the right communities. Even in the arts, the microbial world inspires imagination. Salvador Dali, fascinated by decay, painted melting clocks and rotting forms that echo microbial transformation. Contemporary artists now grow bacterial cultures into living artworks, using microbes not as subjects, but as collaborators. In literature, too, metaphors of contagion and infection have explored themes of fear, connection, and change. Microbes have also shaped the course of warfare. The deliberate use of disease, from smallpox-infected blankets in colonial conflicts to modern fears of bioterrorism, shows how microbes can be turned into weapons. The 20th century saw international treaties banning biological warfare, but the fear remains. At the same time, vaccines and antibiotics have allowed armies to march longer, populations to survive longer, and societies to thrive. Microbes, in this sense, are entwined with human power. Through all these stories, food, medicine, pandemics, art, war, one truth remains constant. Microbes are inseparable from human civilization. We did not build our world alone. We built it with them, and often because of them. Every loaf of bread, every glass of wine, every cured infection, every epidemic overcome or endured, all are part of this long, invisible dialogue. When we think of history, we picture kings and queens, armies and revolutions. But perhaps we should also picture microbes, yeast bubbling in clay jars, plague bacteria traveling on fleas, penicillin molds spreading across petri dishes. The greatest actors in human history are not always the ones we can see. And so, as we sit at the table with bread and cheese or receive an antibiotic pill from a doctor, we are participating in a partnership that stretches back millennia. The invisible world of microbes continues to shape our lives, not from the sidelines, but from the very heart of existence. Of all the microscopic entities that inhabit our world, none inspire as much debate, fascination, and fear as viruses. They are everywhere, in soil, in the oceans, drifting through the air and circulating within us. Yet their nature remains strangely elusive. Are viruses alive? The answer depends on how we define life. A virus cannot reproduce on its own. It does not eat, metabolize, or respond to its environment the way a bacterium does. Instead, it carries a simple package of genetic instructions, DNA or RNA wrapped in protein. To replicate, it must invade a living cell, hijacking the host's machinery to make copies of itself. Outside a host, it is inert, almost crystalline. Inside a host, it bursts into activity, replicating with relentless efficiency. This strange existence places viruses on the border between the living and the non-living, agents of life's chemistry, but not quite life themselves. And yet, viruses are astonishingly abundant. In the oceans alone, scientists estimate there are 10 to the 31st power viral particles, more than all the stars in the universe. They infect bacteria, archaea, fungi, plants, animals, and us. Some cause disease, while others play subtle roles in regulating ecosystems. In the grand cycles of the sea, viruses bursting microbial cells release nutrients that feed new generations of plankton. They are, paradoxically, destroyers that sustain. Viruses have also been pivotal in evolution. By inserting their genetic material into host genomes, they have acted as agents of gene transfer. In fact, about 8% of the human genome consists of remnants of ancient viral infections, long ago tamed and incorporated into our DNA. One viral gene even plays a role in forming the placenta in mammals, meaning that without viruses, mammalian reproduction as we know it might not exist. The discovery of giant viruses in the early 21st century, such as mimivirus and Pandora virus, blurred the boundaries even further. These viruses are larger than some bacteria and contain hundreds of genes, challenging the idea that viruses are always simple. Some scientists suggest they represent a shadow lineage of life, survivors from an ancient world before the familiar three domains of life, bacteria, archaea, and eukaryotes, emerged. Our relationship with viruses, like with microbes in general, is dual. They are both our enemies and our partners. Smallpox, measles, influenza, HIV, and SARS-CoV-2 are devastating reminders of their destructive potential. Yet we also use viruses as tools in gene therapy, where harmless viral vectors deliver corrected genes to patients, in cancer treatment, where engineered viruses selectively attack tumors, even in vaccination, where fragments of viral proteins train our immune system to defend against disease. The very entities that cause pandemics may also help us cure them. Looking ahead, the future of microbial science is filled with promise. Advances in metagenomics, sequencing all the genetic material in a sample, allow us to glimpse the microbial dark matter, the vast majority of species that cannot be cultured in the lab. New technologies are uncovering microbial communities in places once thought sterile. The deep biosphere kilometers beneath the Earth's crust, the upper atmosphere, even the built environments of our homes and cities. Each discovery expands our sense of the microbial universe. Synthetic biology takes the partnership further. Scientists are now engineering microbes to produce biofuels, bioplastics, and even biodegradable building materials. Microbes have been designed to clean oil spills, capture carbon dioxide, or glow in the dark as living sensors. One day, entire industries may run on microbial processes rather than fossil fuels. Medicine, too, is being reshaped. Microbiome therapies aim to treat obesity, diabetes, and depression by rebalancing the microbial communities in the gut. Personalized medicine may soon include microbial profiles alongside genetic ones, tailoring treatment to both human and microbial genomes. Even fecal microbiota transplants, once an unusual idea, are becoming recognized therapies for restoring microbial balance after infections. Beyond Earth, microbes guide our imagination in the search for life elsewhere. If extremophiles can survive in boiling acid or frozen ice on Earth, perhaps similar life exists on Mars, in the icy oceans of Europa, or in the methane lakes of Titan. The detection of methane plumes on Mars or organic molecules on Enceladus raises tantalizing possibilities. If we do find life beyond Earth, it may not be grand organisms, but microbes, small, resilient, invisible architects of their worlds. And so we arrive at a kind of philosophical reflection. For most of history, humans thought of themselves as the center of creation. Then we learned that Earth is not the center of the universe, that we orbit the Sun, one star among billions. Now, microbial science offers a similar humbling. We are not solitary beings, but symbiotic collectives, woven from human and microbial threads. Our health, our history, even our evolution are entangled with entities too small to see. The paradox is striking. Microbes are invisible, yet they shape everything. They are ancient, yet constantly evolving. They can devastate populations, yet they also sustain life itself. To recognize their presence is to see that the visible world, forests, oceans, human cities, is only the surface. Beneath it lies the true foundation, a living network of unseen actors, as old as the earth and as persistent as time. Perhaps this is why learning about microbes feels both unsettling and comforting. Unsettling because they remind us of our fragility, that a virus we cannot see can bring the world to a standstill. Comforting because they reveal the deep interconnectedness of life, the way even the smallest beings sustain the largest. Every breath, every bite of food, every thought you've ever had has been touched by microbial influence. Antonie van Leeuwenhoek, peering through his handmade lenses in the 17th century, could not have imagined how vast this hidden world would prove to be. Yet his astonishment at seeing animalcules swimming in a drop of water is something we can still share. To look into the invisible is to be reminded of wonder. As you lie here listening, it may help to think of yourself not as a single being, but as a community, trillions of lives intertwined, human and microbial, moving together through time. You are a habitat, a landscape, a planet in miniature. And beyond you, the Earth itself is alive with microbial networks, an endless invisible ocean of life. The microbes do not ask for our attention. They simply persist as they always have, shaping air and soil and health and history. But every now and then, when we pause to notice, we see the truth. The world we know is only half the story. The other half is invisible. And in that invisibility lies not emptiness, but abundance. Not silence, but life.